For decades, the idea of controlling a computer with your mind was pure science fiction. It was the stuff of the Matrix or Ghost in the Shell, a fantasy reserved for movies. But in January 2024, that fantasy quietly became reality. A man named Noland Arbaugh, paralyzed from the shoulders down, sat in front of a computer and played a game of chess. He didn't use a mouse, he didn't use voice commands. He used only his thoughts. This wasn't magic, it was Neuralink. But how did we get here? How does a coin-sized chip actually read your mind? And is the goal really just to help the paralyzed, or is it something much stranger? Today, we're plugging into the surprising history and science of Neuralink, right here in Simple Things Surprising Histories. To understand Neuralink, we have to start with the problem it's trying to solve. Your brain is essentially an electrical generator. Every time you think, move, or feel, billions of neurons fire electrical signals. The issue? We've never had a good way to plug into that electricity without causing damage. Founded in 2016 by Elon Musk and a quiet team of top neuroscientists, Neuralink's goal was to build a brain-computer interface, or BCI. Now, BCIs have existed since the 90s, but they were clunky, with wires protruding from a patient's skull. Neuralink wanted something different. They wanted it to be invisible. The result is the N1 implant. Imagine a device the size of a large coin. It replaces a small piece of your skull, sitting flush with the bone, completely hidden under the skin. Musk himself famously called it a Fitbit in your skull. But the magic isn't the coin, it's the threads. Attached to the chip are 64 tiny, flexible threads, thinner than a human hair. These threads contain over 1,000 electrodes that dive into the brain tissue to listen to individual neurons firing. Because human hands, even surgeons' hands, are too shaky to insert threads that small, Neuralink had to build a robot surgeon, the R1, which works like a sewing machine, to implant them with microscopic precision. Before they could touch a human brain, Neuralink had to prove it worked. And this is where the story gets both fascinating and controversial. In 2020, the world was introduced to Gertrude, a pig with a prototype link installed. When she snuffled around for food, a screen beeped and spiked with real-time graph lines. We were watching her brain process her snout's movements. Then came Pager. In April 2021, Neuralink released a video of a macaque monkey playing the video game Pong. Pager wasn't using a joystick, he was controlling the paddle entirely with his mind, just by thinking about moving his hand. It was a viral sensation. But the progress came at a cost. Neuralink faced federal investigations and heavy criticism from animal welfare groups. Reports surfaced alleging that the rush to get results led to unnecessary suffering for the test animals, with some monkeys developing infections or adverse reactions. Neuralink admitted that animals had died during early testing, but denied the claims of cruelty, stating they adhered to federal regulations. It was a dark cloud over the company, but scientifically, the data they gathered paved the way for the biggest milestone yet, FDA approval for human trials in May 2023. On a Sunday in January 2024, the history of neurotechnology changed forever. Neuralink implanted its first device into a human patient, 29-year-old Noland Arbaugh. Noland had been paralyzed from the shoulders down after a diving accident 8 years prior. For nearly a decade, his interaction with the world was limited. But days after the surgery, he was doing something incredible. He was staying up until 6 a.m. playing the strategy game Civilization VI. He was learning Japanese and French. He described the experience as simply staring at a spot on the screen and willing the cursor to move. He said it was like using the Force. But it wasn't perfect. A few weeks after surgery, Noland's cursor started lagging. Neuralink engineers discovered that some of the tiny threads had retracted, pulled out of the brain tissue, reducing the data signal. Instead of another risky surgery, the team rewrote the recording algorithm to be more sensitive. Amazingly, it worked. Noland regained control, proving that the software was just as important as the hardware. By late 2025, Neuralink had expanded trials to over a dozen people, targeting not just cursor control, but the ability to control robotic arms and wheelchairs. So where does this go from here? The immediate goal is medical. We're talking about restoring mobility to the paralyzed and giving a voice to those who cannot speak. But Neuralink is already looking at the next frontier, vision. The Blindside project, which received FDA breakthrough status, aims to bypass broken eyes and optic nerves to beam images directly into the visual cortex. In theory, this could allow people who have been blind since birth to see for the first time. And then there is the ultimate long-term goal, the one that sounds the most like sci-fi, symbiosis with artificial intelligence. Elon Musk has frequently argued that as AI gets smarter, humans risk being left behind. His solution? If you can't beat them, join them. He envisions a future where Neuralink allows us to upload information instantly or communicate telepathically, effectively merging human consciousness with machine intelligence. Whether that sounds like a utopia or a nightmare depends on who you ask, but one thing is undeniable. The bridge between the human mind and the digital world has been built. We are just taking the very first steps across it. What do you think? Would you ever get a chip implanted in your brain to access the internet? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history in the making, please hit that like button and subscribe to Simple Things Surprising Histories for more stories about the technology that shapes our world. Thanks for watching.